Welcome to this first lesson of the Geometry Remediation series. And our first lesson, you can see here that our objective is going to be, given a two-dimensional net of a three-dimensional solid, students will be able to determine the solid with 100% accuracy. So the first thing we have to look at is what exactly is meant by a two-dimensional net. Well, a two-dimensional net is where when we take a three-dimensional figure, such as a cylinder, 3 dimensions, and we break it into its two-dimensional parts. So this cylinder we're going to break into the two-dimensional parts that make it up. So looking at a cylinder's two-dimensional net, you can see that both the top and the bottom of the cylinder are circles, and then when we roll out the middle, we end up with a rectangle. So a cylinder's net, two-dimensional net, is two circles and a rectangle. Looking at another three-dimensional shape, this here is what we call a hexagonal prism, because the two bases of this hexagonal prism are actual hexagons. If you see, it has 6 sides here, and then it has 6 rectangles which make up the 6 faces of this hexagonal prism. So looking at the two-dimensional net of a hexagonal prism, you can see here that we have 2 hexagons, and then we're going to have a number of rectangles. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rectangles. So a hexagonal prism is made up of 2 hexagons and 6 rectangles. Okay, here is your common square pyramid. We know it's a square pyramid because it is square on the bottom. Looking at the two-dimensional net for a square pyramid, it is made up of 1 triangle, 2 triangles, 3 and 4 triangles. And then you have the square on the bottom. So 4 triangles and a square. So let's take a look at some problems we have here. First one up. Which three-dimensional object could be made by folding the net along the dotted lines? Okay, and the dotted lines, a little bit hard to see. The dotted lines are actually here. They're actually this darker line that you see here. So right here are our dotted lines. Okay? And if you were to look at this, you see that we have a triangle here in the center, and then we have 3 rectangles. So anytime you have a shape like a triangle, or in the case that we just did here, we had a hexagon, we called this a hexagonal prism because it was made up of a hexagon and rectangles. Here we have a triangle with rectangles. So we're going to call this a triangular prism. Because it's made up of a triangle base and then faces that are a rectangle. Looking at this shape in 3 dimensions, here is your triangular prism. Whenever I look at the net of it, you can see that we have 2 triangles and 3 rectangles. Okay, looking at the next example, which three-dimensional object could be made by folding the net below? Well, if you look at that, that's a rectangle and 2 circles. Well, we just talked about that, where we have a rectangle and 2 circles. And whenever we go and we fold that, the rectangle up, and we cap it off with the 2 circles, we get a cylinder. So the answer to number 2 is a cylinder. And looking at the third example we have here, which three-dimensional object could be made by folding the net along the dotted lines there? Well, here we have a square and then 4 triangles around it. We talked about this one earlier as well. We have the square, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 triangles. So that's your square pyramid. Okay, so that is it for the first lesson of this geometry remediation series. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask your math teacher.